State officials said overnight there were 14 active wildfires burning across California. Blazes have grown by more than 4 times just since Saturday morning.
And so it was really just everywhere you turned around, there was a new spot fire. There were literally hundreds of spot fires coming off of this.
Fire north of the Bay Area has burned at least 30 buildings and forced 4,000 people to evacuate the city of Clear Lake. Authorities urged residents in several areas to flee.
This is the first time I've ever evacuated, so it's been all new experience for me.
In Southern California, firefighters briefly ran from flames. The area's largest wildfire, the Line Fire, has burned more than 20,000 acres in San Bernardino County and has grown 14 times bigger in just over 1 day. An emergency was also declared in Nevada as a fire south of Reno forced 14,000 people to evacuate. And a brutal days-long heat wave has gripped the West, with triple-digit heat expected in some areas through tomorrow. And the heat, along with thunderstorms, making things even tougher for firefighters.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kat Oriel with Forbes Breaking News. Today, I'm here with Dr. Chad Hansen, a California wildfire scientist and a forest and fire ecologist with the John Muir Project. He's also authored books about this topic as well. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to do so.
Well, so let's get started with a very big fire going on in Southern California right now. I know Southern California is facing a bout of a few uncontrolled wildfires. So the biggest one right now is the Line Fire in San Bernardino County. Can you talk about the reports you're seeing about this fire, and do we know exactly what caused this?
Well, the cause is unknown at this point, as far as I'm aware. I suspect it's a human cause, probably an accidental ignition, just because of where it started. It started in low elevation at the edge of a community and then spread up slope into the mountains. Typically, those are human ignitions. But right now, it's over 20,000 acres. It's burning between Highland and Running Springs, and then spreading eastward towards the little community of Angeles Oaks. And, it's spreading through some pretty remote country and very steep country in hot, dry, windy conditions. And that's really the main factor, is the weather and the climate.
Right. That's interesting that you mentioned about the potential human cause of this. I'm wondering if you have a little bit of a breakdown. Of course, climate only exacerbates this, but do you have a breakdown of like how often it started just, completely natural causes or a human potentially causing it?
Absolutely. So there's been a lot of work done on this, and depending on the study, the figures vary a little bit, depending on how they look at it. But basically, when you're talking about lower elevation ignitions that are close to communities, the great majority of those are human caused, over 90%, sometimes over 95%. When you're further into the mountains at the higher elevations, most of those ignitions in the West are lightning causes. So basically natural lightning strikes. Now, there are some, accidental or sometimes arson human ignitions in the mountains too, but usually it's lightning in the larger fires in the mountains. So it really just depends where the fire started.
Right. Well, speaking of lightning, I think one of the most interesting things that I saw when I was researching this fire is that they were saying that smoke from the fire has created clouds similar to those that come from thunderstorms, prompting reports of almost 1,100 lightning strikes in the area. So I'm just reading that and thinking to myself, is this normal? Is this the new normal? Is this something that you often see in wildfires?
Yeah, you do. You do. It's a common a feature of wildfires. Smoke has an effect on fire. It can actually have a dampening effect on the fire activity. And if the smoke kind of gets blown out by the wind, then you've got warmer, sunnier conditions, and that can spread the fire faster. So you have a lot of feedback loops in these fires. It can influence all kinds of things. And yeah, there have been a lot of lightning strikes, which is kind of an X factor here. Of course, you can have new ignitions happening with that.
Well, I do also want to speak to climate change, of course, that often tends to be the root causes of natural disasters like this. And so I'm just curious how you've seen climate change lead to an increase in the frequency and strength of wildfires, and just how dire the situation is now in 2024.
It's pretty serious. Climate change is a huge influence on wildfires. Wildfires are natural, and they're not a bad thing in ecosystems, whether it's chaparral or forests. You can have too much fire or too little fire. We have too much in chaparral right now. We have too little in most forest ecosystems, but it's natural. It's not a bad thing. The difference is that with climate change, we are in a position where in certain areas we may get too much fire. That's already happening in Southern California in most of the chaparral ecosystems.
Well, I know you also mentioned that as well when it comes to fighting the fires when they're actually happening. The ways in which that can be happening sometimes are also wrong. So can you speak to those strategies a little bit? And do you see those strategies being implemented right now during the line fire?
Yeah, they are. I mean, and we see this line fire is not unique in this, but most of the money, most of the effort is on bulldozers out in the wildlands, trying to create long bulldozer lines that they think will stop the fire from spreading. Giant air tankers dropping water and fire retardant out in the wildlands. And the thing is, you can't stop a weather-driven fire that way. The thing is, you can't stop a weather-driven fire that way. The thing is, you can't stop a weather-driven fire that way. The thing is, you can't stop a weather-driven fire that way. When you've got hot, dry, windy conditions, the fire is going to move. And a lot of what happens when the fire moves is it's throwing up embers, and the embers are driven by the winds, and it's leapfrogging over the fire line. And so it'll just go over any of those bulldozer lines. It doesn't matter. I mean, they'll go 2-3 miles sometimes, the embers. And so when you have hot, dry, windy conditions, you're really, you're trying to fight the wind, and you can't fight the wind, and you can't fight the wind, and you can't fight the wind. You can't fight it with a bulldozer, you can't fight it with a chainsaw, and you can't fight it with an air tanker. And so that's why I say that those are tactics that are just not, especially in the era of the climate crisis, those are tactics that are just not effective, not anymore.
Before I begin, I'd like to give honor, glory, and praise to the Most High Yahweh, Hashem, Yahushua, Hashem, HaKodesh. Recently, there was a news report concerning death by heat. But it's going to be more than death by heat in these last days. There's going to be death by earthquakes, death by pestilences, death by famines, and death by being deceived by men. This is from Matthew chapter 24, verses 4-8. And what is it? All of these things are the judgment of the Lord Yahweh, Hashem Yahushua. You see, all judgment is given in the hand of the Son, and it's the Son whom the world entity calls Jesus Christ that is passing judgment all around the earth today under his orders. You see, the worry is real. See this report here from Scripps News about death by heat. There's a lot of people that are dying. You see, a motorcyclist died in Death Valley, and there are over 300 heat-related deaths in Phoenix, Arizona. Remember, the Lord says, the slain of the Lord shall be many. And this is how we know that this is fulfilling prophecy. This is Malachi chapter 4, verse 1. For behold, the day cometh, and it is now upon us, that shall burn as an oven. And that's what you see today with these temperatures all around the United States of America and all around the world increasing. Especially, you have to understand, especially in these areas where the Gentiles, the Europeans have colonized, and that they are in present occupation. This is where a lot of this is actually happening. So let's finish this out in Malachi chapter 4, verse 1. Not only for behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven. It goes on to say, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. Why? Because they're going to be taken off of the earth. And another scripture. Psalms 83, verses 12 to 8. This concerns a multitude of Gentiles who will be punished and destroyed. Verse 12. Who said, let us take ourselves the houses of the Most High, talking about the 12 tribes of Yisrael, in possession. And we are in their possession today, and we're in the possession of many Gentiles all around the world. Verse 13. O my power, make them like a wheel, as the stubble before the wind, as the fire burneth a wood, and as the flame setteth the mountains on fire. And there's mountains on fire all around the world today. Verse 15. So persecute them with thy tempest, thy storm wind, whirlwind, to do what? To terminate, to consume, to have an end and perish, and to make them afraid with thy storm. What storms? Storms like a hurricane, storm or stormy, tempest or whirlwind. Verse 16. To fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Lord. Let them be confounded, that is, confused and troubled, that is, to be disturbed, alarmed, terrified, to be in hurry, to be disturbed, to be anxious, to be afraid, to be hurried, and be nervous, as we see in these news reports, forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Yahweh, art the Most High over all the earth. Isaiah chapter 29 and 6, who maketh his angels spirits and his ministers thunder, earthquake, great noise, storm, tempest, and the flame of devouring fire. You see, they call it climate change, but it's actually the judgment of the Most High God, the God of the Israelites. And I leave you in the most capable hands of the Most High Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh Shai.